supposed to be your children. I thought we family. You supposed to be my father, bro. I need answers. We don't need to die young. We just need chances. Tired of living on the edge, so we keep scrambling. Trying to talk to these strippers, but they keep dancing. We just want to be number one like Steve Francis. Bow our head, say a prayer, now the seeds planted. Everywhere I turn, I'm seeing MCs vanish. Lot of good niggas gone, I don't understand it. Lot of families lost and they seeds stranded. I ain't trying to disrespect you, I just need answers. I know you watching us from heaven thinking who to save. Cherry picking who should go next and who should stay. I'd be on my way to heaven if I knew the way. And bring back every good nigga you choose to take. They say you never wrong, but you done made a few mistakes. Did you taking the wrong niggas, maybe you...
Hey! What's up, y'all? Hey, welcome to another episode of the Perfectly Incomplete Podcast. This is episode number 9. I'm your host, Imogene. My co-host, my girl, Tony's in the building.
Hey, y'all, what's going on?
What's up, y'all? So, what's today? Today is whatever it is, but today has been a trip. But what it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I can't wait to hear what Tony thinks about mental health, because I got some stuff for mental health today. So what do you think about Mental Health Awareness Month is making people aware of mental health and how it's prevalent in the world? What do you guys say about that?
Well, I feel like there's a common misconception about mental health.
Well, what is mental health? How do you describe mental health?
How would I describe mental health?
Because Webster and them be coming up with the definitions. Who gave them the right to say what words mean? Okay? Just because they say what it means don't mean what it mean to me, okay?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like mental health is just like your overall well-being as far as emotionally and how that can manifest into your physical well-being. You know what I'm saying? It's just how you feel either about yourself or about your environment. I feel like it's all internal.
Okay, and I'm going to just expand a little bit more. When I think about mental health, I'm thinking about your actions, your thoughts, your behaviors. When you say people have mental illness or they're abnormal, I'm thinking about a person's thoughts, behaviors, or actions that lead them to negative consequences in their lives and affects their quality of living. So, you have these things like depression and schizophrenia and all of that, these labels. But mental health and mental illness, everybody mentally ill, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, everybody got some issues.
And I think...
More issues in vogue, I say. Everybody has at least more issues in vogue.
All right, but for the sake of Mental Health Awareness Month, and I always try to do my little research, but I have my own take. I don't need to read about mental health because I don't need nobody telling me what mental health means to me. Like we go to school and they tell you this means this. Just because you tell me don't mean it means it to me. I could have my own definition, and that's how I feel about mental health. But when I think about it, what do you measure somebody's mental health? What's the baseline? Whose baseline are you measuring it by?
Who's baseline? What do you mean who's baseline?
Like for instance, let me just throw some stats out here if I can remember. Supposedly between 3 to 5% of the world's population, bless you,
thank you,
is mentally ill. You have...
What does that mean?
That means...
Like diagnosed or like professionally diagnosed with mental
the
illness?
Categories that was indicated is schizophrenia, depressive disorder, and bless you, bipolar.
Okay.
So those were the ones that were indicated.
So we're not like counting anxiety and PTSD and all that other type of stuff.
Man, they just give labels. If you think about it, that's the problem with the world now, people giving labels, right?
Yeah, I'm about to say there's probably a lot more. It has to be a lot more than 3 to 5% of the world's population.
Okay, these are just the stats I looked on Google, right? and I'm going to give my take on that. But as far as, and I agree with you, mental health is your well-being, your state of well-being. But when people are making these labels and giving these diagnoses and stuff like that, who the hell do they think they are?
I mean, you do have people who are professionally trained in order to give diagnoses. But my question is where does this come from? Like, how do you say that someone is mentally ill? Like, what are you basing this on?
You don't want to ask me that. You don't want to ask me that. You don't want to ask me that, Tony.
Why?
Because
they used to say like hysteria was a mental illness for women. And the way to get rid of hysteria was for a woman to have an orgasm.
Oh my God, you taking it places I don't even know. I ain't gonna go there.
Legitimate. Okay, well,
we'll break it down to me because I don't even know.
Because it's true. They used to say that women who become hysterical if they aren't satisfied. So the way that they would, that would include like killing their husbands, that would include them just acting like quote unquote acting out, things like that. And it's because they weren't being satisfied.
And so they just gave them the level of the label
Hysterical.
of being hysterical and mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
There's
okay,
something wrong with them.
let me just take this path. Okay, we know there's a lot of people that have deviant behavior,
Right.
that don't behave to the norm. For instance, there's an indirect link between mental illness
Mm-hmm.
and these mass shootings at school. And people are like mentally ill, but there's an indirect link. So when they ran the numbers or whatever,
Right.
these people who done these mass shootings, they ain't crazy. It's just based upon what they believe and all this stuff. And they made a decision that I'm finna go shoot up this damn school. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but people say they're crazy because who would do such a thing to kill people you mentally ill? What do you say
please.
about that?
I mean, anybody has the will to kill somebody.
You think they're mentally ill?
No. I think they just want to kill some people.
All right.
I do think that some people who kill for no reason, like when I mean like no reason, I mean like serial killers, that they kill indiscriminately. You know what I'm saying? Like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy.
Right.
People like that, the
Right.
Zodiac killer. Hannibal, what's his name? Hannibal Lecter? Is
Yeah.
that his name? Hannibal Lecter.
Clarice.
Oh, Jesus.
I was so scared of that movie.
But like people like that, definitely something,
Okay, so I
ain't
get
right.
it. You have the mentally ill because some people are just wired. They're
Right.
born and they're wired a certain kind of way.
Right.
Whether they be autistic or they're missing a piece of their lobe that
Right.
controls this function. I get that. But I'm talking about the state of things. Everybody want to say
Like
people,
somebody's like, oh, well, he murdered somebody. Oh, there's something wrong with him.
right.
No, he felt like murdering somebody.
Okay, and I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there. Like they say, well, they, and you know who they is.
Uh-huh.
They is who rules, makes all the rules, right?
Mhm.
They, I'm gonna just say it from my perspective. Okay, if I act crazy and if I turn up, I'm not mentally ill. I may be atypical. I don't act like you think I should act. And we
Right.
know, here I go again with the
Uh-oh.
dominant male European person that defines what's healthy,
Mhm.
what's a healthy state of mind, and what's mentally ill. But think about it. If you don't oppress me for all these years, you don't whip me, you don't hung up my peoples on trees. Now it's institutionalized
rape.
isms, right? I got a reason to go off on you, don't I?
Absolutely.
So I'm not mentally ill.
No,
But I mean,
not.
the difference with me, I live in a society where I'm aware of the rules and the consequences, so I choose to do stuff. But isn't it kind of funny? It's almost like this world is so much about money and power. It's like the powers that be, they create illnesses just so they can make money. It's almost like an oxymoron. You come up with mental illness, you created mental illness by the way you treat people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And mess with their mind. You know what I'm saying? Because if you stripping my family, you taking my father from me, you giving him 59 years when you giving your little friend's Jeffrey's son 6 months probation for the same thing, you messing with my mind.
Right.
I ain't mentally ill if I want to go to your house and do whatever I want to do to you. I'm just expressing what I feel, but you label me as mental ill. No, Nigarachi, I'm not mentally ill.
Yeah, Nicarachi.
Yeah, I'm not mentally ill. I'm just saying you treat me a certain kind of way. No, I'm not going to act like, I'm not going to try to be all politically correct because this is my life. You messing with my mind. You heard?
Yeah.
That's just me. And they're talking about, but we'll
Well,
go
what
into
you
the,
mean? Well, no, what was you getting ready to say?
like mental health. Okay, and keeping it real, there are people who have issues and people have medicines, people need medicine and people do therapy. Because I engage in therapy, that's counseling support. So I get that. But just like for instance, when you talk about mentally ill, I don't know the percentage, but a lot of people that are being incarcerated should be in rehabilitative facilities getting rehab.
Right.
And I forget the statistical number of the amount of people that's been categorized as mentally ill that's incarcerated that are being abused. I just read something about a correction officer locked up a mentally ill person in the shower for 2 hours and his skin boiled and he died. Okay, so they're like,
abuse.
you're mentally ill, mean your behavior is atypical. And you would think, why would you be in jail? You would be in a rehabilitation
Right.
place, right? What do you think about that?
I mean, we've been using jail as a form of rehabilitation for centuries, unfortunately. And pretty much it's like, oh, it's to correct your behavior. But I mean, what behavior
It's
needs
really not funny.
correcting?
I'm glad you laughing
I'm
because it's not
laughing
funny.
because it's just I'm trying to figure out a way how to say something
Just say it, girl.
without cussing.
You can cuss if you want to. Jesus forgive all our sins.
That's true. That's true. And I'm gonna pray tonight just because I shouldn't be cussing in public and on this podcast and my aunties watch it, but it's bullshit. And
Hey, auntie.
and it's like, okay, I understand that originally it was supposed to be for rehabilitating. You're supposed to, make people better. You're supposed to make them better for society because this is the way that society works. We have these norms in place.
You mean like locking people up, right? Jails and prisons?
Right.
All right, let's just be clear because we're still connecting it because we're talking about mental health now. Right.
Well, how else would you lock somebody up?
Go ahead. You're on your train of thought. I can't complete your. I was just mentioning that a lot of people in prison or jails are mentally ill when they should be getting rehabilitative services for their minds, meaning the way they think, make decisions, that type
But that
stuff.
was supposed to be the purpose of prisons, was to correct one's behavior. Hence is why it's called the correction facility.
You think?
I'm just going from the words.
Now, let me,
I study criminology in school. I have a degree in it. I know the history of prisons and the way that they work as far as a societal base. So when doing that, that's what they were meant to do. Granted, that is not what they are doing. We do know that now, that that's not what they have been doing, with the funds that they have been given. We do know that. However, there are organizations in place that are trying to change that, but that's a whole
You really
nother
believe
issue.
that, don't you?
I do believe that I know that there are organizations.
Praise God that you're
in
so
place.
humble. Now let me kick it to you like this. You said you studied the history of prison, right?
Right.
I go back to the onset of mental health. Well, I'll say asylums because the U.S. modeled their institutions from England. England was the first country to have mentally ill asylums.
Right.
And a lot of it, they were experimenting on people.
Right.
And I'm sure with research with the Nazis during the war, what they did, they were doing some really bad things, inhumane things. Yeah. And that's why they came out with this big research board, ethics and stuff like that. But without giving a history lesson, which I always say you got to really know how things started to really be able to assess where they are.
That's the concept of Sankofa.
Absolutely. But with I'm going to just keep it real about mental illness. The powers that be, we've had one black president, and y'all always hear me say black and white, but I'm going to keep it 100, because out of 45 presidents, one of them has been black. So who's been ruling all the time? But what I'm saying, you have all these scientists and whatever, they started out with asylums, right?
Right.
And it was just bad. And I was looking at some asylums in Oregon, Rikers Island, different places. I would start looking at this conditions of whites and blacks. Blacks were sleeping on floors. It was like a modern day jail, or they were shackled, or they were in just bad conditions. But these were the people that were being experimented on, doing different things. They were doing like shock therapy. They was just doing all kind of stuff, experimenting. So then it became a money issue as far as asylums. And
That's
then
actually how they started doing lobotomies.
Yeah, they were doing that. I read about that. and so then they went from asylums to the state doing hospitals. I know we had a state hospital in Poughkeepsie. Then they went to community-based mental health centers, and it was really about money. The state didn't want to pay for this. The federal government didn't want to pay for this. So we know this world is run about economics, but let me kick it with about people. Let me let you interject because I'm just flowing.
No, I'm listening.
Go ahead.
There's nothing to inject.
No, because you always say I be talking forever.
I'll tell you when you talk forever.
But when I think about it, when you look at the number of people that are in jail, we know people of color are disproportionately sentenced, right?
Yes.
Okay, now think about this. I'm Hispanic, I'm Latino, I'm black, I'm Asian, I'm, whatever. I'm in the minority. So the numbers actually prove that I'm not getting treated like everybody else getting treated. You know what I'm saying? You showing discrimination to me. And you saying I'm mentally ill? No, if I flip on you, I ain't crazy. Because when I step to you or I go through this process and you treating everybody else that's in the majority like they're a human being, but you treat me like a second-class citizen, I'm still supposed to display the same behavior that the next person is displaying? Come on, somebody. You know what I'm saying? People talk about history,
So like
whatever.
when people like act out, that's when they get,
I'm not. I'm just being the devil's advocate.
Uh-huh.
I'm just keeping it 100 because just because you go to college. I went to college. I'm a doctoral candidate. I got kicked out of school, whatever. But I learned the material what they wanted to teach me. They gave me their theories, but I still put my mind on it, and I studied my history. And half the stuff they teach it in college is a bunch of bull. It took me a long time to catch on, but it's a trap just to get people in debt. But we ain't even finna go there, right?
That's a whole nother episode.
It's a whole
We
nother
can definitely
episode.
go with that.
But what I'm saying is, who gets to decide what proper mental health is? If you come from a family of generation after generation after generation being discriminated against,
you get tired.
You got hoses at you, dogs biting you, you lynching people, and this. I'm supposed to walk past the street and say, "How you doing?" No, Negro, or Caucasian, or whatever. No, you ain't my brother. I mean, we brothers and no, I'm not down with you. And what's really wild, because in my mind, this government or this system that causes these diseases, that cause mental illness, except for the people who's born like this and wired like this.
Okay, so you're not talking about the people who
No.
are like, can I
go
the
for
proper
it?
term like to be like who have like a chemical imbalance, like the people who like they
I can't
they
say
look at like their serotonin levels.
I can't even talk about that, because when you talk about serotonin, you cannot escape drug use, because I know I'm a recovered crack addict. And when I used that drug crack, and when I got off of it, my serotonin levels were imbalanced because I was so used to using this drug.
But
What
I'm
it
talking
does.
about removing all external factors like drug abuse.
Okay.
Or
there you go.
Alcoholism.
Specify.
Removing those things,
Yeah.
like people who have like an organic.
They're born, as they call a mutation.
Right.
Okay, that.
So we're excluding them out of this, abnormality as far as behavior goes.
For people who are just pure, whose mother, grandmother, great grandmother, none of them done drugs, none of those.
Got it.
Those people who were just, their creator said, look, you're going to
do things a little bit different.
Yeah, you're going to be different.
Okay.
So those. But if you think about it, when they're talking about serotonin levels and all of this stuff, it's almost like the war on drugs. You dropped that on us, right? In the 70s and all that, it was angel dust. People was flying off of buildings. It was this, it was that, and it progressed. But don't you find it interesting that these same things that mess with people, we ain't had no helicopters. Come on now. I lived in projects, Tubman Terrace. We ain't had no helicopters, okay? We ain't had no planes. We ain't have none of this to drop these drugs. I ain't got no connections in Colombia. Not none, okay? I can't afford to pay nobody at Border Patrol. You understand what I'm saying? So, but don't you find it interesting that in every so years, a new disease comes out? You notice that? They be labeling this is strain ABC 3x5. I'm like, where are you getting the name of these? And then, there's a new cure. For me, in my mind, it's like a head game. When they talk about mental illness, to me, the people who's ruling, they got mental illnesses because you setting stuff up. It's like you playing head games with all of us. It's just like society has given labels to black, whites, whatever.
Right.
I'm going to let you talk because I'm going in. Go ahead.
Finish the statement at least.
Society has given labels, all these constructs of labels. They've given labels to groups of people based upon certain characteristics or based upon behaviors. But you notice the people in power, whether it be George Washington and his sick crew or whoever, they were the founding fathers who just said, okay, we the juice. We gonna get us some nigga slaves. We gonna do what we gonna do. We gonna take their stuff and put the fear of the Lord in them, take their resources and play head games with them, and then we gonna rule. So they were the first ones to institute their administrative system of power. So they're in control. Yeah, and you got these resources, and you whipping people and tying people up and shackling them with chains and all of this kind of stuff. You exercising control. So they get to dictate what's normal. And just because I don't act like you, right? I'm talking about them. Because I deviate, I'm atypical for what they represent. I got a mental illness. No. The way you treat me, you lucky I ain't crazy and went crazy off on you. Really, in my mind, I could justify, which I wouldn't do it. I'm saying the big picture of things, but living in this society and the way it is, I know there is a social order that's supposedly good for the benefit of everybody. We do have rules, to maintain order in society. And That's good.
I mean, like, okay, so fine. I can understand rules. I can understand order. I can understand, I can understand norms, right?
Hmm.
But to label somebody as if they are mentally ill because they do something a little bit differently than what the norms are,
Hmm.
it's like, better yet, the child who sits in the back of the classroom, right?
Hmm.
And he sits there and he sings all of his lessons.
Hmm.
You would say there's something wrong with that little boy because he
Hmm.
just sings everything.
Hmm.
He'd be singing math, and he'll be singing 1 + 1 = 2. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Or 2 + 2 equals 4.
But what
I
if
was
I
gonna say
said,
two
but
plus two
what if
equal
I
five.
said 2 + 2 = 3?
They
Then
don't.
tell me something wrong with me.
But
But
that
I
don't
might
make
be.
no
But it
sense.
does make sense. It doesn't make sense to
No, it
you.
doesn't make sense for someone else to tell you that there's something wrong with you because you
That's
think differently.
exactly, exactly, and that's why this little whole thing of mental illness. Because when you look at it, like the demographics or the people who's mostly mentally ill, the way they ascribe to it, they're people of, well, as far as stats, like they'll indicate there's an indirect link between mental illness and poverty.
That
Most
doesn't
people,
make sense.
it doesn't. But this is
Because if
what
it's an
propaganda.
indirect,
This is what
but it-
propaganda will give you.
but if the link is indirect, that means that you can link it to anything.
Exactly, but this is what you hear on the TV and all of this crap and these brochures where they creating jobs for their friends and these psychiatrists with these top, and they the one mentally ill. To me, if you they the one crazy. Anytime you putting people in slavery and the police can go around freaking out, shooting somebody, you know what I'm saying? When they say I got a gun in the gun, my hands is up here and I got a gun, and then you shooting them, you mentally ill.
There's something wrong.
You mentally ill. You understand?
Now I have a question.
I might not have the answer.
You may have the answer. Well, because it may, make you think differently. Would you consider fear a mental illness? Because fear does something very different to your body.
Mental illness is a condition. I think
You don't think fear is a condition?
Not for me, it's not. Fear may be fear. I experience fear in different circumstances, but as far as a condition of my life, I don't walk around in fear. No. I participate in processes sometimes when I think about it in this systematic world, or this world that I live in with consequences and stuff like that. Like I know if I go against the grain, yeah, I do get nervous inside because I say if I call these people out, you hear the phrase "you can't fight City Hall," and I say if I don't agree with the status quo, I do think very carefully because I say if I call this thing out, it does make me a little nervous because I know if I'm raising up, there may be potential consequences.
Right.
So, but to live in fear every day, no. Fear, in my mind, I'm not saying it's not a condition for somebody else. For me, it's a situational type of thing. Why should I be living in fear? What worse can they do to us? What worse can they do to us?
I think I would have to disagree with you.
Think about your history, and it may not be you. It may, and I love my people, okay, and I'm not ashamed of it, and I love my history, and I'm not going to deny it. And like I said, I've spent 10 years in college, post high school, 10 years, business major, accounting, human resource developer, doctorate in business, right? Plus military, drug addict, corrections officer, locked up in the jail, special ed teacher. I've done a lot of stuff. Hustler on the streets, all of this, right? Had cops slamming me on the back of trunks when, my partner in the car had straight up beer, whatever. They ain't mess with them. So I've got a lot of sides of it. And no, I don't want to go out here and get shot today. I don't know how I'm going to go. But what should I fear? You don't already took everything from me.
I think that's you and where you are in your life.
Right. Probably.
Because I'm not going to sit here in front like, I can't. Because I have many irrational fears. Granted, none of these things have ever happened to me, except for my fear of birds. I can't do it.
And I get it. If you're afraid of it, you're afraid of it.
Except for like my fear of birds where something did happen. But like, for instance, when I go out with either my siblings or like a group of friends, I let them know I don't feel comfortable in a group of white people. I don't.
You don't?
I don't. Like if there's like a whole group of white people and I can't see not one face that either looks like mine or one person who I can identify as a person of color and like we here with it, I can't do it. I feel very uncomfortable. I feel like I'm gonna have to kind of like distance myself because I do know my history and I know people flip like that.
Right.
It can go from, oh yeah, we're all friends, we having a good time, to all of a sudden, Tony done did this, this, and this, and then Tony in the back of a police car, and Tony wasn't even there half the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, I got a fear. I live in
No,
fear.
no, and I'm not
I'm scared
knocking
as
it.
hell.
I empathize. I understand exactly what you're saying, and like apparently you've thought through the scenario,
Oh yeah,
and
real.
and
So many times.
maybe I'm just crazy because I've been in situations like that where I've been in this homeland and on international borders and different places where I've just rolled with nationals. And I may have been the only American, only African American, and I've been with just Germans or French or whatever.
See, I've done that overseas. I'm not really worried about them. It's here.
It's that USA with 45, huh?
It's legitimately,
Yeah.
it's like American soil that like, because even when I went to like Canada, I was a student ambassador growing up. So,
Okay.
I've been to.
Nice. You've been to Canada? I haven't been there yet.
I've been to Canada. I've been to, when I went to Japan, I stayed there for 6
I've been to
months. When I
Japan,
went
yeah.
to.
Can you speak Japanese?
No.
Can
They
you-
put
can
me
you-
in American school. They put me in American school there.
Excuse me?
Huh?
No, I was listening to you.
Oh, you was talking to him. But no, they put me in American school while I was there. So I still took like my regular classes and everything. When I went to Spain, I was fine. When I went to France, I was fine. When I went to Scotland, I was fine. Those places, I was fine. But when I'm here,
Yeah.
I get real shaky.
And I get it. And that's situational though, right? Because you don't walk around like that every day, only in certain situations, right?
If it, like I said, whenever it's just me in a group,
But that's wisdom.
is it?
I call that
You
wisdom.
don't call that fear? You call that wisdom?
No, for me, I call it just, you're a smart woman. And like if you just chilling with the crew, you good because they got your back because you guys share something in common and they can relate to you, right?
Right.
But when you with a whole,
Bless you.
excuse me, when you with a whole nother group of people,
See, this how you
excuse
know
me.
everything she's saying is true because she keeps sneezing on it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When you with a group of people and you're the unique one out of the group, you don't share other whether they be primary or secondary characteristics of them. That's called wisdom. It's like your spidey senses is saying, hey,
Get out.
and I think, and that's a physiological process, a fight or flight. That's something that just happens in the body, but your mind just works with that. And I'm not going to say you've been conditioned because they try to condition, groups of people try to condition you through fear, through punishment or whatever. But to me, that's wisdom that you got sense enough to know that say, okay, well, I live in this society and these rules. These are the people I roll with. These are the people I feel safe with. But I have to interact with different kind of people.
Right.
But when you roll with me, you may say, well, I'm cool with Imogene. I can let myself go. But when I'm hanging out with Becky and
Sue
Sue and
Tammy
and Shane or whoever their name is, right? When I'm hanging out with them, I can be cordial, but I still gotta hold my identity. I can't deny my identity
Right.
and say, okay, we all crew, because it don't roll like that. So I don't think that's fear. I think that's wisdom.
Ooh.
You should be scared. You're the only African. I was finna say niggerachi. I don't use the word nigger because I just don't like doing it. But I do kick it when I'm home. I say niggerachi because that's how we cool. We cool, right? So no, I don't think that's fear. I think that's common sense.
You think, oh, I got common sense, y'all. Because I thought it was just me being scared.
No,
I'm
if you
not
want to
even
call
gonna
it,
lie,
and I don't think that's a mental illness.
I would have legitimately said that, like, I do sometimes think that fear would be considered a mental illness because it happens automatically. It's not something that, you can control. It's not something that, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just out there,
And that's cool. But what I'm saying, like, that's why when they use the category of mentally ill, you said maybe you're just out there. You're not out there. I just listen to how you express your feeling. Usually a feeling demands a thought. If you feel in a certain kind of way, well, for me, if I have a certain feeling, it's usually something I'm thinking that makes me feel that way.
Right.
So if I'm feeling loneliness or sadness or whatever, it must be some dust or something in here. Yeah. But if I'm feeling a certain kind of way, I check in to think about what I'm thinking about. Because since I'm in control of my feelings,
Right.
And if I'm feeling sad, I don't want to stay sad. So I got to check in with my thoughts to see, Imogene, what are you thinking about that's making you sad? And somehow I have to unpack that thought, make sense of it, and make a decision to say, hey, I got to change that thought. Or if it's a truth that I have to accept, I have to work it out where I can take a thought, even if it's a fact, and it negatively affects me. Okay, I got to feel that sadness, but I got to create another thought to get me to move beyond that sadness, you
You
know?
can process that quickly.
No, some things are quicker. Some things take me longer than others because I don't want to never make it seem like I'm all of that because I'm
Right.
an emotional creature too. But in learning myself and
Mhm.
being mindful of myself and what I'm feeling, I have sense enough to know. And I've learned that, like people will say, oh, I'm just frustrated, I'm just tired, I'm sad or whatever. And some people will stay there for days. I used to. I would talk about something for days, what happened to me, and be mad and whatever, whatever. But as I start learning skills, I'm in control for the most part. God is in control. But other than that, I'm in control of my own happiness, how I feel. And yeah, changing my thoughts is a choice if I have the skills to work through it. So if I'm feeling a certain kind of way, if I'm feeling sad, like I was feeling angry today, right?
Right.
And I was able to, I say, okay, to me, every emotion demands a thought. They work together. You're feeling a certain kind of way because your mind is thinking something. It's just an integration. It's a complex web of experiences and thoughts, what the experience means to you, the way it makes you feel, your behavior. It's all intertwined. And then
Right.
it's the way you perceive. So people that have faulty perception, there's a basis for it, and it requires work. And I'm not going to give all of that out because y'all stay tuned because you will be able to pre-order my book in about 3 weeks, and I
Woo!
can't really give it all away, but that's what it talks about. But all this is just to say, to get to the point, like when they say mentally illness, that's why I can say people categorize it, but even if I don't agree, I can empathize. And so I'm not saying Tony go out and shoot up a school, but I can get it that if you went to a school, you used to go to this school and you were getting good grades or
Mhm.
whatever, like this big scandal with all of these parents not so long ago was paying these coaches and guidance counselors,
Oh
the
yeah.
SAT people to get their
Right.
kids in school. They just got busted. So if you went to this school and you was busting your behind, you was getting good grades legitimately, and you find out because all of these rich people are paying off these school staff to get their kids in there. They can't even play sports, but they putting their kid's face with somebody else's body to make
Mhm.
it legitimate. And depending on the resiliency of a person or where they come from or what they've been through,
Right.
don't you think that's enough to say, yo, this isn't fair? They may be going to the counselor, the dean, whoever, trying to get answers. I'm not saying it's right for you to go blow up a school. I'm not saying that. But for them to roll up in the office where the same people who they talk to was giving them a bunch of BS and they blow their heads off, I'm not saying it's justified, but I can understand that person's way of thinking. So am I going to call them mentally ill? No, I'm not. And that may sound crazy to you, but what makes it weird to me, society is always coming up with these labels: mentally ill. You have this disease, or crack addiction, or this and that. Look, homies, y'all the one invented these diseases. Y'all the one that brung this stuff, okay? It's like you all are creating a narrative, doing this stuff. Don't play games with me. You know what I'm saying? Y'all brung the drugs here. When
That's
when
also very
Carter or
true.
whoever did the war on drugs
Nixon.
or Nixon, yeah, all of that stuff with him and with his Watergate. Look,
Wait,
don't
Nixon?
don't
No,
play.
Reagan.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
Ronald
knew.
Reagan.
Yeah, don't
I was
don't
say
play
Nixon.
games.
That's
You drop
wrong
the drugs
direction.
here in these communities, right? And then it's all economics.
Right.
And so now you're trying to come up with programs and this and that. It's just stupid. To me, that's mental illness. From the White House to the greenhouse to whatever other kind of houses where all these crooks is, in my opinion. And I'm just kicking it, but I ain't trying to hear that. But yet you calling people, how can you define mental illness? For these cops going out here shooting these little kids or raping these girls. I saw on social media where it showed a cop raping a girl in the holding cell. So whoever took this video was inside the jail. And you try to follow it down, and the FBI or whoever, they will tell you it's social media. It's no way we can track this. You
I'm
can't
about
track
to
that.
say, how did it get there?
But you
Somebody
can't
got
track
it.
it. But when y'all was after Bin Laden or Saddam Hussein,
Yeah, I
whoever,
found him real quick.
he was all on the ground. And you got satellites all over our house where you can tell us when we in and out and stuff like that. But I find it foul that when it comes to certain groups of people that can kill each other and do all of this stuff, and you can't find who the killer is, no, they got mental illness. So I'm going to leave it alone. But so y'all know it is Mental Illness Awareness Month. Okay. And mental illness, people got stuff going on. But I think mental illness is relative. And I would say everybody got something wrong with them.
I think there's a really big stigma around mental illness.
Yeah.
And I think that when it comes down to people asking for help, that's where it's the issue. Now, if you know that there's something going on with you and you need to speak to somebody or you need some sort of advice or whatever the case may be, you do that. Don't be afraid to be like, I need help. If you know that there's something going on with you, ask for help.
Right.
Go see somebody, go talk to somebody about how you're feeling or whatever you're experiencing in that moment or whatever the case may be. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Right.
And I think that's what the most annoying thing about, mental illness is with me. It's the stigma that we place on it. That, you go, mostly in my own community, I would say. It goes from, oh, you don't need therapy, baby. You just need to go pray about it. No, I need therapy. Or no, don't go see a therapist. Talk to the pastor about it. He got a license.
and I'm glad you brung that up. Not that I'm the great philosopher, but I believe in the super natural divine deity too. But I do believe God gave people gifts to be therapists and counselors. And because if I'm bleeding to death and my carotid artery
I'm
is
not
blocked,
gonna go to my pastor.
I'm gonna, and people say, oh, I have faith this big. If you have faith that big, go ahead. But for me, if I know I got a blockage and I can't breathe, I'm gonna go to the doctor, So in that sense, I'm going to do, when you think about there's different realms. There's the supernatural realm. There's the physical realm. You have to call upon heaven for heaven to come down to earth.
Right.
But we ain't going to go there, right? But still, I ain't even going to go there. But for the people who say, oh, just call on Jesus, baby. Maybe that's the way they were taught. Maybe that's the way they were taught. And, you can't knock it. We can just pray for them to be enlightened because God, he uses people. Everybody knows that.
Listen, the Bible also says that faith without work is dead. So,
yeah. And I have sympathy and compassion for people because I used to watch it on TV. Oh, just claim it. You're going to get a new car and claim this new house. Well, what you going to do? The new car, you going to the dealership or you going to sit up and watch it on TV and think it's just going to appear on your parking lot?
Right.
They need to tell you got to make a car note, that you got to have some credit, that you need insurance or whatever. And that's like a whole
down payment.
Whole new school. And we ain't going to go there because there's a lot of mentally ill people in church.
Right. It's all right.
But,
it's all right.
but see, I guess it is, mental illness is real. All I'm just saying is, who is qualified to say who's mentally ill? Because it's like the people who make the rules, they the sickest persons to me. Like, I done had some therapists, they crazy as hell. I ain't lying. Even when I was in the military, these people was...
I had a therapist who had a therapist.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd say, how do you do this? Y'all gotta be crazy because there's no way you can listen to all these people's problems without it affecting you. And I had this one therapist, she just be looking at me like this. And I'd be like, yo, you all right? You
gotta check on her.
No, yeah.
Do you need to speak to somebody?
No, and I done had some therapists, I'd be like, before I leave, I'd be counseling them. So, and not to knock it because I get it that we all have, people to talk to. When I think about mental illness, most people think of the way people think, the way they behave. But for you to just label it because you see a person acting out a certain kind of way,
just say they're different.
You have to look at their culture, their experience. Like, and I got a big thing with kids in school. They're so quick to give them that label of
ADHD
or special education.
Right.
I noticed I taught special ed. I had third, fourth, fifth graders. Then I went to middle school. I had 6th, 7th, 8th graders. Yeah, they had parents who were in prison or drugs or whatever, Hispanic, Black or whatever. And just because they did not display behaviors like the typical dominant European white kid, they got to be a deviant. Who the hell told the typical European white person that they're the perfect model from which everybody else is evaluated upon? You
I
know?
agree.
And I'm like, you know how we kick it? We're animated. We keep it real. We do a whole nother thing,
Right.
but you want to label us. But when we kicking like that with the music, now you want to do it and you making money off of it, right?
Okay.
When we kicking it like that with the fashion, now you want to roll with it like that,
Right.
So it's just amazing how that double standard is. We're not atypical when you can make a dime off of it. But in the school system, you label us atypical as another way to get money from the federal government, this and that. We don't even want to go there. But that's a problem. And I could go on for days, but when it comes down to it, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And maybe we all got issues, but to say you're sick, don't never call yourself sick.
Never. You ain't
I
sick.
said,
You're different.
unless you were wired a certain kind of way.
Right.
But if you choose to call yourself sick or mentally ill, that's cool. And don't have a stigma with it. If you feel like you will benefit by going to talk to someone or by going to get you some medicines or whatever, that's your choice. But what I'm saying, whatever you decide to do for your mental health or your mental state of being, let it be your decision, and don't roll around with a stigma or a negative concept of yourself because of what somebody else is saying.
Right.
Because who are they to determine your state of being, your status quo? They crazier than you. They crazier than me. That's really all I got to say about it. It's a deep conversation. But when I come down to it, it's a bunch of mental oppression. I got to keep it real. I'm a Black woman. I'm real dark. And I love everybody. But I'm not going to pretend that I don't have a history that affects the present right now. Maybe I'm a little intellectual, a little enlightened, but I still have a lot of my other people who not there yet, who are letting people push this stuff in their mind and mentally oppress them with this propaganda, and they're believing certain things about themselves. So, like they say, mental illness is atypical behavior. What it is thoughts and actions and behaviors that may lead to negative consequences. But if somebody beating you down and tortured you to stakes and hung you from trees and done all of this kind of stuff, I don't think you're going to be normal. You should be angry as hell, So if you go whoop their ass, excuse my language, if you whoop their ass, I'm not going to say you mentally ill because I can empathize with you. Now, I'm not encouraging you to do that because we do live in a society with rules, right? But to say somebody is mentally ill because they break the rules, you can't say that. Everybody is wired different. Everybody's values is different. Everybody is not resilient as the others. Some people are weaker. Some people are stronger. Some people are more vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? Whereas if someone comes to do something to my son, I can keep it together where I can call the police or go to the authorities. Whereas if you step to my mother, God bless her soul, I'm not going to no police, right? Am I crazy? No, the point I'm making, my value system is different in that circumstance.
Right.
So, if I could give y'all anything, y'all know I talk a lot, but that's the purpose of this podcast. I don't do it like everybody else do it. I do it. I want to talk about things, but through the conversation, I still want to let you know you're awesome. I accept you for who you are. People calling you mental ill, forget what they call you. What do you call yourself?
Toni.
That's right. You call you, and I'm Imogene. Imogene got issues. I got issues. But
More.
what I'm saying, you still love yourself. If you feel like you need to talk to somebody, or you feel like you need to go see somebody to get meds, be careful with those meds,
Right.
because they do certain things and then add different
other
effects.
things, and then they cause something.
Yeah. And let me tell you about this serotonin, because they love to throw out this serotonin.
And endorphins.
They love to throw this out. And I know, because I've taken psych meds.
Right.
So it is when you're doing drugs or you're doing alcohol, it's like the chemicals in the alcohol interacts with your body chemistry and it replaces your natural serotonin. So the stuff in this drug makes you feel good. And so therefore it's like you rewire your chemistry. And then when you stop drinking or smoking, you will go into depression because your drug has killed off your cells and now you don't have the alcohol. So it's not producing that chemical. So they'll tell you, take this and, this and that, and, it'll produce, the serotonin, it will increase your serotonin levels. And then that adrenaline that you get, when you exercise, the endorphins that are released that fight pain and all. So I'm saying if you do choose to use therapeutic drugs, and I'm not a doctor, I'm talking from personal experience. That's it. And I'm not ashamed, trial and error. I learned some things. But if you are going to use stuff, do your research. And
Ask
don't
your
let people tell you that you
pharmacist.
got to be hooked on drugs forever. Because if you have to use psychosomatic drugs or whatever, I don't even know if that made sense, but if you have to use drugs to help you learn those coping skills or whatever, you do what you got to do. But don't label yourself mentally ill. Words are powerful. I don't say I'm mentally ill. I say, I got some
say I
issues
got issues.
and I got some problems.
I
But-
tell people in a second, I got
Yeah.
more issues in Vogue. Whether or not you want to read it, it's your business.
Yeah. So I'm not mentally ill. I prefer to use the word crazy because if you come
Crazy?
second, I'm gonna tell you, if you come to me trying to put that mentally ill thing on me, I'm gonna react like I'm crazy. Because since you're saying I'm atypical, I might as well give you a little skit and show you how I'm just gonna demonstrate. But that's just me. Okay?
Your girl said,
anyway.
she said I'm crazy.
Yeah. And
I
not in
said
that
Vogue,
sense,
but she go crazy.
people
Okay.
gonna say what they're gonna want to say, but you always got to look at the source and who gave them the right to label you anyway. So
Right.
at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what people say about you. They can give you insight about you and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what you say. So if you do got some patterns of behavior or thoughts or actions that are bringing negative consequences to you, talk to somebody that you trust. Talk to somebody that you love who's going to support you, not judge you. Don't have that stigma. Getting help is not a sign of a weakness. It's a sign of a strength.
Absolutely, because it takes a really big person to say that there's something wrong with me,
Absolutely.
and I can't do this alone.
Right.
So I need somebody to help me.
And don't get it twisted. There's plenty of doctors and lawyers that takes meds, and y'all president should be on some meds too. He's the president and he's mentally ill and he tells about 22 lies a day. So if he's
not
not
more.
if he's mentally ill and he can be crazy,
If not
know
more.
that you're perfectly incomplete. How about that? Hey, it's been real, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure, thank you all for the ones who are watching. And we do this because we do this is about purpose and whatever we can share that may help somebody. Make sure you all
Like, comment, and subscribe. It took me
absolutely.
about 6 takes to get just that.
Yeah. Yeah. And subscribe and share, okay?
And share. I forgot about the share
All
with
right,
all
so-
your friends.
So next time, where's my music?
Ooh. Ooh.
The engineer's about to get fired because I just hit the
Ooh.
space bar and I have no sound coming out.
For good.
All
All right, y'all. Thanks for watching.
If only you can
You
bring it back,
said,
Lord, I wish you would. Give a
ow.
Biggie,
I
give
mean,
a
this is
Tupac,
not really
give
a
a
song that you
Triple
turn
X.
up to. You just
Take that
kind of
nigga Trump